Hello and welcome to Across the Pond WNBA. Back, missed the start of the season. Unfortunately, I had COVID. Still probably do a little bit with a cough that just will not go away, will not die. But I am back. I'm back to kind of moderately healthiness status. Not, I'm off the IR list at least for the time being. But Michelle, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to see you're back. I've had COVID, so I know how hard that can be. And I know with the three boys in the house on top of it, I bet Rachel was losing her mind.
Yeah, I wasn't Mr. Popular. Well, I was ill. I mean, she understood that I was ill.
Yes.
But Rachel, yeah, she puts up with a lot, and then I go and get COVID, and then it's like all hands on deck, and, um, luckily no one else caught it. Um,
Amen. Yeah.
so, like, that was, 'cause I remember my oldest caught it, and he was a bit like me. It just floored him for, like, a week. Thankfully, we're out of that kind of phase, or I am anyway.
We're glad.
Um, and yeah, back on schedule, and it's been a great start to the season. It has to be said. We've already had across the pond aces
Yeah.
and across the pond Liberty Drop episodes as well. New host Jasmine, who we have media credentialed out in Las Vegas, going to games. Her first game was the Fever game last weekend, and she said that was a blast. It was the atmosphere in that arena was insane. So yeah, it's we are all go this season for the WNBA.
Definitely. Let's get it. It's gonna be a great season too.
There's so many storylines. Like
Yes.
we could probably do a 3-hour podcast without breaking a sweat. But we have narrowed it down because we just don't want to do that to people. But yeah, there's so much going on in the W just now. We will talk about Caitlin Clark later on. Uh, I would say positive and negatives to the Caitlin Clark. What did we call it last time? The Caitlin Clark
It was
train. Uh,
the Caitlin Clark effect.
I think Caitlin Clark effect. You know what? What was funny? Like 2 days after we said that, Holly Rowe was on TV and she said the Caitlin Clark effect, and I was like,
Yes.
Holly clearly listens to our podcast, obviously. Just saying. Holly obviously is a great broadcaster.
Yes.
Love seeing her in the W every season. She now works for my team as well, the Utah Jazz. So, so she must. By the way, like, see for a broadcaster, I don't think she ever takes a break because she always seems to be doing either college,
Yes.
jazz, or WNBA. So, uh, formidable woman who just works her socks off, and obviously racks up the air miles as well, doing all that traveling. But we are going to be talking today. First of all, something a bit different and something that I've talked about with NFL players, with NBA players. Angel Reece has made an investment into a women's soccer team. Now you would think it would be like the NWSL, but there's an up and coming league called USL S, and one of those teams are going to be called the DC Power Football Club. And Angel Reese is one of their newest owners, and she has bought a stake in the team. Now, I remember, like, and you maybe remember this as well in the 90s, like, sports stars would not invest in other sports stuff. They would invest in restaurants,
Mhm.
real estate, and all this kind of stuff. But we have seen in the last, certainly in the last few years, a lot of athletes investing in other sports leagues. Now, obviously, Angel has some NIL money kicking around. So, do you think she's putting this to good use?
Absolutely. For 2 reasons. One, yes, typically people will put them in restaurants and franchises and things like that, but we know most restaurants 9 out of 10 fail. Most businesses, same. In the first few years, I think being able to put it back into sports, which we know unites, it brings people out. She gets to invest in something she loves and give opportunities to other women across the board to kind of have opportunities. So it's twofold for me. You know, she's giving back with the platform that she's been given, but also making sure that she invests her money so that she has long-term diversity as well when she gets through playing basketball, which will be a while. She's got a long career ahead of her.
Yeah, she has a long, long career. So the USL Super League, as it's
Yes.
called, it is a new league. One of our kind of people that we work with occasionally, especially in the NFL, RBLR Sports out in Tampa, they have already started a podcast based on the team in the USLS that is going to be there
Mhm.
in Tampa. I think they're called the Tampa Bay Sunshine. They have an amazing logo and stuff. It's really cool. But they were at like the opening kind of ceremony to the team and everything else like that. So there's a real buzz around this league. I know
Mhm.
NWSL just now gets a lot of hype,
Yes.
but I think this league has like massive upside potential when you see some of the names that are involved, and then
Yes.
when you start seeing other athletes then investing as well. I think, and you're right, like she's not just investing in a business; it's investing in other female athletes, and I think that's something that we see a lot more of. We don't see, I don't wouldn't say we don't see men do it, but I think it's good that we see women supporting other women as well.
Absolutely, and the men do it. I think it may not be talked about as much, but there are plenty of them. I have to take it from my fellas on that one. They do a lot of deals, and sometimes they prefer to move in silence with a lot of things. I think it's harder for an Angel Reese who is at the peak of women's basketball right now to keep a lot of things, keep a lid on a lot of things. So, and honestly, I don't think it should be. This is the right time to promote and show the philanthropic side of these athletes as well and how much they care and how they're leveraging their platforms to make sure the next generation has opportunities as well.
Yeah, I think it's a great investment, and
Yeah.
hopefully we see that happen. I got it wrong, by the way. It's the Tampa Bay Sun FC, not Sunshine. I don't know where I got that from. I'm just making stuff up now. Now, the DC Power FC, their first game, it's a while away. It's not until
Mhm.
August 17th. And now they are a DC team,
Yes.
so it'll be interesting to see how many games she gets to. But yeah, looking forward very much. I think the Olympics is kind of around that time as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on in August, to be fair.
Yes.
A lot going on. But yeah, their first game is in fact, theirs is the first game of the league. Theirs is like the opening game of the league on August 17th at American Legion Memorial Stadium.
Yes.
There you go. Now, I think this is an excellent move for a number of
Mhm.
reasons, and I really do think this might start a trend where we will start to see other female athletes, maybe from the WNBA, maybe from the NWSL, start to go out and invest because we've seen a lot of NBA stars once the CBA was changed, were able to kind of invest in the WNBA teams.
Mhm.
Do you think we'll see more WNBA players do this kind of thing?
They are doing it. I think we're just at an age and a time where it's actually being talked about.
Yeah.
So, because I played back when it first started, and that was a while ago. Um, and players were doing it back then. I just don't think it was as trendy and it wasn't as hot and popular as women's basketball is right now. And we kind of talked about it's just the timing for women right now. If you're doing these things, you have a platform right now is huge, and it allows you to really showcase the power of women's sports. And I think you're going to hear more and more about that. I think we're going to talk a little bit about Brianna Stewart and what she's doing with things like that as well. But there are other players I can name 4 or 5 right now off the top of my head who are doing similar things. They just maybe haven't hit headlines yet.
And this is the thing, and like I'm aware of this here, even in Scotland. Like, there's a lot of athletes that, obviously soccer's a big thing over here.
Hmm.
There's a lot of athletes that'll do a lot of investing, but also a lot of charity work.
Yes.
And a lot of the time, what they'll say to these charities is, "Look, I know you'd love to like use my
Yeah.
likeness and all this kind of stuff, but I really just want to do this just to support and to help. So let's
Hmm.
keep it on the down low, kind of thing." So,
Yeah.
like, as I know, there's a soccer player when I was growing up, Ali
Mhm.
McCoist. There's stories of him like turning up to kids' hospitals, like at
Yeah.
Christmas and giving out gifts and all this kind of stuff. But it was never publicized. It was never kind of,
Mhm.
and I think it's good as well that the media, who probably knew that it was going on, didn't report it as well. Like
Mhm.
I like how there was that kind of respect that, the guy's wanting to give up some personal time to go do some good and keep it on the down low. So I think there's a lot of that goes on as well, like where, media probably do know that it's going
Mhm.
on, but they've maybe been asked, like, let's just keep on the DL just now.
Yeah, there's some of that. It just depends on if it's I think it depends on the organization too. Sometimes they don't need that publicity, they just need the help. And sometimes it's a newer organization that may need the publicity. So it just depends on the different dynamics around the deal. Is this a personal, a player that's very private, or is this one who doesn't mind bringing the fans along on the journey? And that's everyone's personal preference. I think right now we're blessed to be able to go on this journey with some of these players so that we can see that it is happening and it is being done, and for those who wanna move in silence, that is okay as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now, someone who's not moving in silence is Darren Waller. I think he's still with the Giants. Um, he may be looking for a new team, but he's released a music track video, and it's very descriptive. Certainly, the video is, and Kelsey Plum released a statement, before the season started to say that
Yes.
she was heartbroken, she felt let down, and all these kind of things. And by the way, for anyone who's watching, I now have my Kelsey Plum jersey behind me. It's taken a long time to get that, and it's now here. But she released that statement, and now,
Mhm.
weirdly, probably not the way I would go about it. He's now written a song. I would imagine it's auto-tuned out to with the wazoo, but he's now like released a song. I don't know if he can sing. I mean, he maybe can, but
It was
like,
definitely auto-tuned.
yeah, I think so. The video is, it's a it's a bit out there, and
Yeah.
yeah. What are your thoughts on it? Because I'm just
Wow.
perplexed.
Um, I was shocked, honestly. I'm a private person though, so I'm not one to really post stuff, or I'm very romantic, so I'll do things like that, but I probably wouldn't have posted it. But at the same time, he should be allowed the space to share his story, just as she shared her side. And it's very evident because that video is extremely descriptive. I think if you want to go watch it and come up with your own hypothesis around it, go ahead. But you can definitely tell he's hurt too. So it sounds like two people who are hurting, and whatever the case may be, they're both trying to figure it out, and he is too. I feel like that, in football terms, that was definitely his Hail Mary in terms of just letting her know how much he cares and how much she means to him, which
Mhm.
I think is beautiful. At the same time, we're only getting the surface of everything that happened between the two of them. So, in my personal experience, if you aren't there, I don't really want to speak on it, but I just prayers up for both of them. We want both of them to just be okay and to get back to a healthy space so that they can continue to focus on their careers, their family, and their friends. And if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, I think as fans, I think when we put things on the internet like that, a lot of people will now be in your life and in your space that maybe you didn't want. I'm sure he's getting railed in the locker room around all of this from his teammates and family and friends, because you don't really see guys pouring out their hearts like this. And I have to give him, that was brave of him to do and not care what people think. And at the same time, it does open that door for other people to kind of speak on their relationship and their business.
Well, that was the thing I thought of. Like, I mean, I'm not really one for like gossip stuff. Like,
Same.
that doesn't really interest me all that much. But like, and her statement was very kind of out. It was put out there in written form, and that was kind of it.
Mm.
He's obviously kind of upped it
Yeah.
somewhat and went all out, wrote a song,
Yes.
and as someone in the video playing the part of Kelsey Plum. And
Yes.
yeah, like, if he'd written a song and he just released a song and it was just, like, audio only, then I would get it, but,
Yes.
like, he's went to a whole kind of way of production and, like, and it's not cheap, like, this does not look like a cheap production either. Like, so
That part.
he's went to a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Don't not saying that he doesn't have the cash for it, but,
Yes.
like, he has went to a lot of effort, so I agree, like, I think, you know, 2 people are obviously hurting. When we seen the Kelsey Plum statement, yeah, I was like, "Oh, Darren Waller is such a douchebag." But, you know, you have to think that there are 2 people involved, and
Yes.
like you said, we can only surmise and, you know, throw hyperbole and gossip and all that kind of stuff out there, but in actual fact, we don't have a clue because their relationship is between them. Like, at the
Yes.
end of the day, like, you're a private person, I'm pretty much a private person, like, I don't post a lot of personal stuff, out there, apart from when I was moaning I had COVID, but, like, apart from that, yeah, I don't post a whole bunch either, so, yeah, hopefully I think the tough thing is as well because obviously the ACs are in season and the NFL isn't in season, so I think
Yes.
the thing is as well, he has a lot of spare time right now. Like, I mean, I'm sure
Absolutely.
he'll have a lot of commitments and stuff he has in the off season, but at the same time, he he's probably sitting around, so he's had time to think about this and put it together. So, you know, fair play to him. If it is what we think it is, which is a really a love letter to Kelsey,
Yeah.
then you know, hopefully, you know, bridges can be mended or whatever needs to happen can happen, so that they're both happy ultimately at the end of the day.
Yes. Absolutely. I do wanna know how much that production
Oh,
costs, though.
oh yeah,
Just
yeah, it looks expensive. We'll move along. Now, the Las Vegas Aces now, we mentioned this a little bit on Across the Pond Aces last week
Mhm.
because it had actually really just come out. It wasn't really kind of a big deal at the time. However, the WNBA are now investigating the Las Vegas Aces, due to a sponsorship deal between effectively the 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 tourist board of Las Vegas and the Las Vegas Aces players, where basically they've given each player $100,000 to basically promote the city. I mean, that's in effect what it is you're repping the
Yeah.
city. We're gonna have you turn up at events. We're gonna
Mhm.
have you do A, B, and C, and we're gonna give you 100 grand to do it. And oh, by the way, if you could three-peat, that would be awesome too. Like, that was, like, the throwaway line from the president
Yes.
of the Vegas touristy board. They have a particular name, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. And I was like, "This is great news. This is really good. You're seeing a city invest in the team."
Yes.
Normally, you don't do that. Look, like, the investment comes in stadiums and all the rest of it, but
Yes.
this is different. This is the city really investing in a local team. And I thought, "This is great. This is great news." And then the WNBA are like, "Oh, we're investigating this." Like, when you first heard about it, did you think, "Oh, this is a great idea?"
Mm.
Or did you think, "Oh, well, WNBA are gonna come down on this?"
One, honestly, the first thing I thought was what Mark Davis said when we first started this podcast. I'm gonna show other teams how to get players, keep them, and make them happy. So the first thing I thought when I saw is the LVCVA, which is basically the commission, the tourist board for the city of Las Vegas. I love the video. I love that they actually videotaped it. I love seeing the players' reactions because we all know that many of these players have to go overseas to supplement their income. So to see the city saying, "Thank you for all that you've done," they have been repping Las Vegas from day one with no payment. They have done so with class. They have brought championships. They've had the Las Vegas Strip full of fans and tourists coming in. I have friends that are actually going out there to see them play as well. So it's interesting that they're bringing all of this publicity to the city. The city rewards them. And I was actually kind of shocked to hear that there was an investigation. At the same time, I do understand because the league is to make sure things are fair. But I think Mark Davis, at the end of the day, because I've spoken to him personally, his intent is to show other teams how to do the same thing. So he doesn't care if Atlanta does it. He doesn't care if New York does it. The ultimate goal for him is women's sports. He doesn't care if he play on his team or not. He just wants to see the game survive. In order to do that, these players are going to have to make more money. And so I love what he said when he came out and said, "Look, you won't find nothing."
Yeah.
I thought that was the best explanation. I thought he threw a little shade at Nike too, because he had a fair point. How can you own 25% equity in the league and turn around and give a $30 million contract to Caitlin Clark? And I was like, that's a very fair point, because that could be seen as a conflict of interest as well. And he's like, well, we can't slap some people on the hand, but not have rules and regulations across the board, which is a completely fair point of view. But at the end of the day, I honestly think it's just getting these players more endorsements and opportunities so that they can stay home and be healthy for the WNBA season, especially when you look at how the fan base is growing and all the interest around the sport right now.
And at the end of the day, what we ultimately want to have is have these players stay in the US and not have to play abroad. And at the second of that, as the league expands and as we bring in more teams, like Toronto got announced a couple
Yes.
of weeks ago, as this goes on, like Kathy has already said, "Oh, we're expanding." Well, last year we expanded. We added an extra couple of games in the season. I would
Mhm.
imagine that the hope is. I mean, I hope we'd never end up in an 82 game kind of scenario, because I think that's too. Even for the NBA, I think that's too much. But like, if we ended up with like a 60 game season or something, like, but you can't do that if you have players playing abroad. So you have to make sure that they're making enough money so they don't feel like they have to go abroad. Now, I would imagine
Mhm.
a very smart lawyer, smarter than me anyway, if when the CBA comes up and it says, right, there's now going to be 60 games, well, you're going to have to pay if you want them to play for 60 games. So you're going to have to increase the salary cap. And that's the whole thing. But for the moment, what you want to do is have people like invest in the players from the local
Yes.
community, because
Yes.
at the end of the day, especially for the Aces, this is a relatively new team.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it was transplanted in. It's not like the New York Liberty, who have been the New York Liberty for a very long time. That you're trying to build interest, you're trying to build a buzz. It
Mhm.
helps that they've won championships, so people do want to go out and see what all the buzz is about and get that atmosphere in the arena that Jasmine talks about on across the Aces. So you do want to hear that, but the Caitlin Clark comparison, I mean, it's kind of apples and oranges. $28 million, $100,000. There is,
Mhm.
I mean, when is a sponsorship not a sponsorship deal? And I think Mark Davis pretty much said it
That
was
was his point.
this isn't us. They've
Yeah.
come to us to
Yeah.
facilitate like getting the
Well,
players together and
they
doing it.
didn't come to them. They
Yeah,
didn't. That was the thing, is if they come to the team and they facilitate it through the team, it is actually against the collective bargaining agreement. They went through the players and the agents. When they did the video was the first time that
yeah,
everyone was in the room. Which I get, because I
yeah,
get at that point now the league has a reason to be like, hey, we need to investigate this, because the team can't orchestrate it, because then it helps them to recruit players in the free agency, which Vegas has had some issues with in the past with Derek and Hamby.
yeah, yeah.
So I
We've
do understand them looking into it. I just hope they know that I think Mark Davis really is just about, I don't care if another team does it. I just want to show a blueprint for how we can get these players more money.
Do you think it was wise to make it public that they were starting this investigation, or do you think maybe they should have just kept it on the down low, not made it public? Because I don't think it's a good look for the WNBA. I have to be honest.
I'm glad they made it public. I actually think I'm glad they made it public, and I'm glad the WNBA is still going to investigate it. And I love how Mark responded, "You're not going to find anything." Um, so
You're gonna
I
say that
think
this whole show, right?
Yo, I thought it was a great way to respond because instead of getting defensive, he just simply said, "You're not going to find anything, and this is an opportunity for other people to follow suit and see how they can also keep their players home in the off season as well." So I love how he handled it. I love how the WNBA is like, we're not having any special treatment, so we still have to look into it. I think it's more about the
Yeah.
languaging around it, using the
Mhm.
word investigation around the Aces again because
Yeah.
they've had that for several seasons. And I think that's the part where Mark Davis kind of joked back and was like, whatever, we're used to this. You're not going to find anything. Um, but I do think it's good for the league because it shows that they are paying attention and making sure that things are equitable across the board and that no team is getting an unfair advantage. So I think the league, like, that's Kathy's job and she should do that. At the same time, I love that neither one of them, like, it didn't turn into an argument or going back and
Mhm.
forth and an ugly look. It was handled professionally on both sides.
Yeah. I think I think for me, like, if you're a player, you're a free agent, and you're, like, looking for a team and hoping someone's gonna pick you up, you are maybe kind of thinking, "Oh, well, at least if Las Vegas pick me up, like, I'm gonna get an extra bit of dough in the pocket." But that's just the benefit of playing in that city because that's
Yes.
what's on offer from the city, not the team. It's so, well, we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. You're right. I did love Mark Davis's statement that he made. I love how he kind of called into question the Nike deal with Caitlin Clark, and I mean you could say that about all the deals
Yeah,
around the league. Sponsorship is sponsorship, though, and the LVCVA are just investing in the players.
exactly.
That's what the way I see it anyway, and I think
100.
the WNBA will come to see that as well.
I do wonder if it becomes an issue with teams that maybe don't have the same power that the tourism board would have in a LA or Los Angeles, Vegas, Miami, New York. I think certain cities do have an advantage in terms of that, but you have smaller cities who have other things that every city has something that they can lean
Yeah,
on and people who can contribute. So I think it evens out. But I also understand why the league wants to make sure it's not something that most teams can't keep up with.
yeah. Because if you're in a small market team, then
Yeah,
you the tourism board
there's no
maybe
tourists.
isn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's maybe not. Like I don't want to crap on any teams, but like Connecticut isn't like the holiday destination when you have New York right next to it, kind of thing. So I mean, we say that
very
quite a
true.
lot. We say
We
that quite a
do.
lot about Connecticut.
Connecticut also is playing in the arena owned by the number one casino in the country too. So I
That's
think that's fair.
that's fair. That's fair. Um, Now you brought a story to my attention. I wasn't aware. It wasn't kind of made news out here. But Brianna Stewart and Naphessa
Yes.
Collier are setting up a
Yes.
3-on-3 league.
Yes. I'm excited. I think brilliant idea. Not the first to do it. Maybe the first that makes it work because we know we've had Ice Cube has done a 3-on-3. I know that they have a tournament right now in the city of Memphis as well for players and even people who didn't play in the WNBA to actually play against each other, and they have a league for that. So to see Brianna, I love how her and Collier kind of sat down and created you can tell this is a well thought out business plan and that the marketing plan has been done behind this. So I'm thinking there's probably another partner behind the scenes, and they're probably the face of it. But to launch it in Miami, to have it's going to be 3-on-3, and there's also going to be an element of 1-on-1. I love that the salaries will be six figures. So now, and it's in the off season of the WNBA winter, so you don't have to go overseas. And the best part, icing on the cake that I love to see, because y'all know how I am about business and branding, the first 30 players also get equity shares in the business. I think this is wonderful for women's sports because what did we just say? For the LVCVA in Vegas, the tourist board, they did it their way. Brianna Stewart in the city of Miami found another way to still find opportunities for these players to continue to maximize their earning potential and to also give back in a community where there is no WNBA team.
That's very true. I love the idea actually, because like I remember, was it the last Olympics? We had the 3v3 tournament,
Yes.
and like I was hooked on that, and not even just watching the US, but just in general, just watching the 3v3 because
Hmm.
it is so fast. Like, I mean, you think a high level WNBA game is fast,
Yeah.
but 3v3 is like it's a little bit like watching ice hockey. We like you
Hmm.
can't even see where the puck is because like these people are so professional at it, like they move it around and you can't even see it. I think the 3v3 tournament is just like that. It is so fast. And I just think there's a lot more hype around it. And I think it's becoming a big, even in the UK, 3v3
Yes.
is becoming quite a big
Huge.
thing. There's tournaments in London, I know. So I think this is a great idea. And I like that it's going to be in the off season. So
Yes.
players can probably, you know, once the season's done, what, October time, they get November, December off, then they can
Yes.
go play 3v3 and make, well, I think the top earner can make $500,000
Hmm.
from what I can see. But there's marketing agreements, there's
Yes.
um, bonuses on top and everything else. And I think it can only be a good thing. I think what I like about it most though is that it's been organized. I mean, I know there's probably a silent partner somewhere, but it's
Yes.
been organized by two players and two players that are actively playing in the WNBA. I think that's pretty huge.
It's amazing. I think this shows the depth of what is happening in women's sports. You know, we started this segment off saying that there are so many storylines. I think there are also going to be so many different passive streams of income that come off of the WNBA because of the NIL. And a lot of it, we have to give credit, a lot of it is because of these NIL deals from the college level that has started to flood into the WNBA and force people to say, no, we don't have to just play. There are other opportunities. There are other things that we can do. And I'll be honest, there have been leagues that have been started before now that have not been talked about, and maybe that didn't survive. So now you see players learning from those mistakes and they get to leverage that and fail forward and continue to create something that they own. I think that is gonna be different. I think that's gonna make sports completely different in probably a few years.
Yeah. I think it's awesome. And I think it gives us something to look forward to in January.
Yes.
And I wonder if they do a deal, like a broadcast deal, where they put it on the WNBA app so people can
Mm.
watch it on League Pass. I think that
Ooh,
that could be fun. That could be
that would be
fun.
interesting. I don't see it
Just
happening. I don't see
just
it
a
happening because I think the WNBA will be like, I think there's gonna be the issue of, "Oh, well, if you're gonna use our platform, then we wanna be paid." And it's like, well, are you setting up your own entity? Do
the
you want it's a few
but
things, few rabbit
but
holes to go down.
this last off season though, the WNBA League Pass had, the Australian League
Yes.
in the off season, so it's not unprecedented that they would show something else during the off season, make use of that app so that it is
100.
kinda getting some use, so
100. I think League Pass will be open to it. I think
mm,
WNBA might push back though.
yeah, we'll see how that works out. Now, you have a choice. I'm gonna give you a choice on this one for our
Mm.
next segment. I mean, we're gonna do both anyway, but Caitlin Clark, do we want to talk negative or positive first of all?
Always positive.
Oh, well, we are still gonna talk about the negative,
I mean, that's
unfortunately,
part of
but
life. That's part of life. But we're gonna start you off with some cake before we smack you.
this is yeah, well, I like that. I have your cake and then you get smacked in the head with it. It's a new saying here and across the pond. So I'm gonna give you some stats now.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to give you stats from a point guard from yesteryear in the WNBA because
Okay.
apparently no one does stats that far back for the WNBA. It only goes back as far as 2018. So
That is
I'm going to
crazy.
give you the number of points scored, and then I'm going to give you the assists in the first. Well, we'll go 8 games. So I just put my mouse over it so I don't go any further than that. So 14 points, 12 points, 7 points, 5 points, 9 points, 8 points, 6 points, 0 points. The assists for that same player was 7, 4, 9, 3, 6, 5, 4, and also 0. That particular player, I'll tell you who it was in a moment. I'm going to give you some more stats. I'm going to see if you can guess which player is which. So, points again, first 8 games 20, 9, 22, 17, 21, 11,
Oh, that's
8,
Caitlin.
and 30. And then, oh, you just ruined it. And then assists 3, 6, 8, 5, 7, 8, 7, 6. Now, the first player I gave you is a multi time NBA champion. Obviously, those numbers are quite low, quite
Yeah.
low. And the second one, as you guessed it, before I even got halfway through the
Yeah.
scores, is Caitlin Clark.
Just saying.
Caitlin Clark is doing a phenomenal job, an
Yes.
absolutely phenomenal job.
Hmm.
The game she's come from in college, it is nothing in comparison. It's so physical, this game that the WNBA have. And the first player was Steph Curry, point guard
Ah.
for the Golden State Warriors. That was his first season. That was his rookie numbers for his first 8 games.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, that last game where he scored 0 points and 0 assists, he did, on all fairness, play 2.5 minutes.
I
But the
was
other
gonna
game,
ask how much time did he play? You know
yeah,
me. I was like, hold on, there's
but
more to the story.
but the other 7 games, he played 21 minutes, 29, 31,
Okay.
21, 20, 39, 35.
Okay.
So
Fair.
he was playing big
Okay.
minutes in those other games. It was just the last one that kind of he dropped off. I think he probably had an ankle injury, funnily enough.
Yeah.
But Caitlin Clark's numbers, you look at them, and I got criticized last week on social media because I said Sides is a good coach. I think she's a phenomenal coach. And I think what she's doing is she's building a team and it's a young team. Like, this is a rookie team. Elia Boston only came in last year. She's in her second year.
Mhm.
You've got Caitlin Clark, who's in her first year. And I think Katie Lou Samuelson's probably like one of the oldest
Yeah.
players on the team, and she's not that old. So, positively, I think Caitlin Clark is doing a great job. And I think,
Yeah.
yes, they're maybe not winning games, but I think if you can get the individual performances all together, then you can start winning games.
100%. First, I have to congratulate you. You got haters, my guy. You doing something. You
I
big
know.
time. ATP is big time. My boy got haters. Y'all better leave James alone. Leave him alone. He doesn't bother anybody. But one, you were right. I mean, at the end of the day, I've always said this. Sometimes you have fans who come to the game, and the WNBA now has millions of new fans who know nothing about the sport. I don't know how many people online, I'm not kidding you, I was somewhat disgusted, who said, who the hell is Asia? Excuse me?
They thought it was a continent.
Who is Asia? I was just sitting there like, you have a lot of opinions and don't even know the number one player. So you have to take it with a grain of salt because you have a lot of players coming from the college level to the pros. So they're learning. So we have to give them grace. And they have to do the same thing. They have to give grace as well. Christy Size is one hell of a coach. I've played for her several times. She knows the game, she understands it, and she also is learning too because now she has a younger player that she's going to have to coach differently. You can't coach her the way you coach these players in the past. So she is also learning, and we have to give her grace when she makes mistakes as well. Coaching through the media, I have never been a fan of that. But I also understand where and why she was saying that. The languaging, we talked about it. Maybe not long twos, maybe just mid-range game is what needs to be focused on, because if she gets that mid-range, she is unstoppable. And she also has to learn to keep a cool head. And I don't care about you getting on my social media talking trash. I don't care. Whatever. I don't.
It was funny
She
because,
does
like,
need a mid-range, and she needs
the
coaching because
he
she
does.
loses it in games and people can't control her. And at the end of the day, emotional intelligence is the fastest way to get someone out of their game. We need her to keep her game. She's If it's going to be the Caitlin Clark effect, she does have a lot of pressure on her. And so people are having to bring her along. But as they bring her along, let's make sure we don't make her the Messiah and everyone else Judas, because they're attacking her teammates when her teammates were the first people during the draft to have her back. They had her jerseys on, they're in the arena, they're shouting, and you hear fans saying that her teammates don't support her. That's not true. Like, I think we have to actually use our intelligence before we open our mouths. And sometimes people are just spitting off opinions and there's no facts to back that. The young lady has immense pressure, similar to LeBron James when he first came into the league. She's in a very similar situation. And it's, how do we all collectively bring her along and maximize the Caitlin Clark effect, because it is helping everyone. At the same time, she's very close to having to sit out just because of the number of technicals that she has. And being one of those people that was in that same position every year, I get it. You learn as you get older and you grow up, and you learn that people are coming at you to get a reaction, and you learn not to do that. She's got to do that as well.
I have to say, I never had a technical as a player. Uh,
What? You weren't
n
playing, man.
no, never had a technical as a player. I was a bit sneaky, and I had a technical at least every game I coached for, what, 4 or 5 years I coached, and I had a technical at least one a game. And I even managed to get a technical on another coach in one game,
I'm
because he
impressed.
me and him were mouthing off, I sat down, the ref turned round, just seen him
Yeah.
still mouthing off, so he gave him a tech and left me alone. Um, I was like, "I'm just gonna sit down and shut up."
Well, I have a
Uh,
question. Since you were a coach that got technicals, were there times when you took that technical to prevent a player from getting one?
so there's either 2 reasons. One, yes, to prevent a player, takes the onus off the player. But the other reason as well is, if and this is a strategy that all coaches will
Yes.
use, is if there's a particular call not being made in a game.
Yep.
So if there's a travels, like, just constantly not being called, or fouls just not being called, or,
Yep.
you know, whatever, then, and you're bringing that to the referee's attention and they're just not listening, sometimes you need to be a little bit louder and wee
Yep.
bit more in their face to make sure that they understand that that needs to be called.
Yes.
And yeah, I'll take a technical for that. And then for the rest of the game, I just sit on my hands. But, like, yeah. So there was a couple of reasons that I would get technicals, but there was always something behind it. It wasn't just that I was being a douchebag. It was that, I want to make sure that I'm giving my team the best advantage. That's what your coach does.
I love what you just said, because I think Christy Sides is also going to learn that. And I think Caitlin Clark is also going to understand where her coach is kind of having those moments, because Fan Chancellor used to do it for me all the time. I've seen him walk to the locker room and go, I just got kicked out for you. And I knew I better figure it out and help us win that game. But these are all just strategies and parts of the game. And I think as the newer fans learn this, because the college game, it's the same game, but it's played differently from college to pros. So there's some differences that I think the newer fans are going to learn as well. I think, like I said, Christy's learning, Caitlin's learning. Let's all have grace with everyone, and let's not demonize the teammates or the coach. Or, we kind of like to pit people against each other. They're all on one team in the same arena trying to win. We knew that Indiana wasn't, they were coming into the season and they were going to be rebuilding. And I think
Yeah.
some people are still on that. We just left the final four. So we have those high expectations. It doesn't work like that. The game is very even when you get to the pros. You can lose any given night against any given team. And Indiana's going to take a minute. And I said this from the jump. It takes time to transition into the league.
I've got 2 things. One, for all these new fans, I welcome you. Like, I want all these new fans into the WNBA that have
100,
kind of followed
yes.
these college players, not just Caitlin, but Angel, as
Yeah,
well, and Kate, and, like, I welcome them all in. I welcome all these fans, but was I think it was Cheryl Swoops said on, like, our 4th episode, "You need to learn your history." The
yes,
WNBA did not start on May 14th, 2024. Right? You have to go back, and you have to realize that actually there was some WNBA before that, quite a bit,
yes.
and I
That
think
laid the foundation.
that laid the foundation for the Caitlin Clarks, for the Angel
Yes.
Reeses of this world to come in and play. The other thing is that, one of the comments I seen was that, Chrissy Sides is effectively, this was I'll quote this, "effectively a rookie coach." And
Do they know how long she's been coaching?
I was like, "How c she"
Who's
That's what I'm talking about, the history, though.
We're gonna
Like,
have
people
WNBA jail. We're gonna have a segment for people who make crazy, ignorant comments. We're just gonna put your picture up on the side and you're gonna be in jail. We're doing this on every episode moving forward.
yes, I think you may be right. But if anyone does have comments, I mean, we're welcome to them. Like,
Yeah.
we're open to them, and we will talk about them. But if you say something stupid, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to call it out. Right, let's talk about the negative aspect. You kinda touched on it with the technicals
Yeah.
and, well, there will be a suspension at some point because she's gonna
Yes.
end up having enough,
Yeah.
technicals to warrant one. One thing alright, there's still a little bit of a positive. I do like
Mhm.
that she's standing up to established
100.
players in the league. I love that
Yes.
about her.
I
I
love
do
absolutely love it.
I do love that. However, on to the negative. The negative is obviously the technicals. You don't want seeing players suspended. 1,
Mhm.
because, well, kinda takes them out of the game, but 2, fans are paying money to see Caitlin Clark,
Yes.
and if you take her out of the game, if that's an away game that she's gonna miss, people have saved up money to go pay for that and go see that game, make a day of it, and she ends up not playing because she's suspended. So I think she has to remember she has a responsibility as well,
Yeah.
on that side. The other thing, I've been watching a lot of her games, and there is some flaws, and I
Mhm.
think sides will come in and she will say, "Caitlin, this is what you need to work on." And one of those is she's a bit of a ball hog.
Mhm.
And I have seen numerous times, and especially against Seattle, I think it was Katie Lou Samuelson, absolutely wide open, like absolutely wide open. And instead of kind of passing the ball off, even like she was maybe 2 passes away, but it would have been a good move. Instead, Caitlin goes in to the under the basket almost, and then dribbles back out to the 3-point line. And she's got her back to Katie Lou Samuelson by this point, so she doesn't even see that she's wide open, and she passes it, and there's a missed shot, and I think she needs to slow down. I think she's, like, just going too fast. She's going, like, at 120 miles an hour, whereas the game's still being played at, like, 100 miles an hour, and but I'm seeing that instance quite a lot where
Mhm.
she's just not looking up enough to see the whole floor. She's just kind of seeing what's in front of her, kind of thing. She has to remember that, hang on, if I can see the other 3 players there, where's my other teammate? And I think that's something that I've been watching. I've watched all her games so far, and
Mhm.
if there was any criticism, and it is a critique, it is criticism. I'm not. I know I've said this like a bit negative, but I would say that that is her biggest thing just now, along with temperament, is slowing herself down and seeing the whole floor.
Mhm. 100% agree with your point of view there. It's very important to understand. Remember, we keep saying that there's a difference between the college and the professional level. In college, even the conference she was playing in, it wasn't the toughest conference either. Don't get me wrong, she played against the best of the best in college, so I'm not taking away from her game at all. I'm simply saying the WNB game, they are bigger, stronger, faster. So those lanes that you could clearly see in college when everyone maybe wasn't as quick, couldn't jump as high, every night, that's a different story. There's someone there that can take away those passing lanes. So you're right. There is a need for her to slow down, and it will come. It will come. She's going to be just fine in this league. She had no break. She went straight from the Final Four to the draft to the league. So there was no chance for her to watch film. There was no chance for her to take some time and get to know her teammates and play. And at the root of it all, I truly believe the problem at the root of it is that there hasn't been time for the team building between the coach and the player and between the other players on the team because everything just happens so fast and the Caitlin effect is so big. And that's why I said I do understand that she's under a tremendous amount of pressure to perform. And the off season, I think, will be so huge for her. She'll be able to just take a step back. She's going to watch the film. She's going to get better and learn and see things. And she's going to find ways to trust her teammates. She has to. If she wants to be successful, she's got to bring her teammates along. And she knows that. Caitlin Clark's a very intelligent player. I think we just have to give her that time. We have to give her that time. I think the second half of this season is going to be very good for her if her legs don't give out. And the next season, I expect her to explode. But for now, I don't want to put too much on her or that team or the coach because they're look at what they've done in a short period of time, even as a team that's rebuilding. What they're doing is phenomenal. So anyone that's questioning what's going on with that organization is crazy. This organization is getting more PR and across globally, not just here in the US, but globally because of Caitlin. The city's on the map. It's done a lot for the sport. So I think we just have to give them time to figure it all out. Because remember, the draft was just a couple of months ago. Like,
Yeah. I think as well, like, I mean, talking about like media attention and everything else, like we've tried to get media credentials for the Fever
mm,
at home because we've got Nate Woods who does our IndyCar show, but he lives in Indianapolis, and he was like, yeah, I'll go cover a couple of games for you. We can't get media credentials for love nor money because there is so much hype and there's so
yeah.
many eyes on Caitlin that everyone wants media credentials for those games. I
Hmm.
wonder though, for her career,
Hmm.
would it be now? I know the answer that you would give, but for her career, would it be best not to go to Paris and compete in the Olympics so she can take those couple of weeks to rest and be ready for the second half of the season?
This it's not my answer. It's a Caitlin Clark answer. Caitlin Clark is one hell of a competitor. There's no way in hell she's not going to go get that Olympic ring for a couple of reasons. Let's talk business. More endorsements. You have more brand power if you go and you win in the Olympics. This isn't as much as she probably needs a breather. And don't get me wrong, I truly believe she needs it. This isn't the time. This is where she builds her legacy and the foundation of it. And there is no book, script, anything where she doesn't play in these Olympics.
It should be noted that Aliyah Boston has just been called into the team for the friendlies before the Olympics, which kind of hints that, you know, she's going to have Aliyah Boston on that team with her as well.
That part. I think that's very good. It's super helpful. It gives her another person too that she is playing with every night, who also was a collegiate standout. And I think Aaliyah is really good for her because she can
Yeah.
tell her how she handled all that pressure coming from USC into the WNBA. And now Caitlin, although it's on a different level, she can still give her a little bit and she can have someone that she can go and talk to who can understand versus someone who doesn't.
What I love is I've seen Aliyah Boston do it a couple of times now, whereas when they're coming off the floor, like at the end of a quarter or something, and something's maybe happened at the end of that quarter, and Caitlin's agitated, and you can see Aliyah Boston puts her arm around her. Now, this is a second year player, by the way. We're not talking about a 5, 8 year vet. This is a second year player. Puts her arm around Caitlin is like, "Right, come on, calm down. This is what we need to do." Like, and
That's
that's
the Don
that's
Staley effect.
yeah. I was thinking that. I was like, is that Don Staley's like legacy that when these players come to the WNBA, they are mature ready, not just game ready, but mature ready as well.
Yes. I think that's definitely part of the Don Staley. I think she does a great job of picking, her players, and she fights for them, and they doggone sure fight for her.
They sure do. Well, it's been a great start to the season. Let's be honest. There's been so many storylines already. There's going to be more. Don't forget to check out Across the Pond Aces and Across the Pond Liberty. They're back this season. And of course, we'll be back each and every week to talk about stories around the WNBA. And hopefully, we will have some guests throughout the season who will join
Mhm.
us and give us their stories as well. But for now, hope you all have a good week. Enjoy the games this week and this weekend. And we will catch you next week.